here street fighting with brass knuckles and shanks, and we're playing by Marquess of Kingsbury rules. Because that's what Democrats do.
Pardon me. Pardon me. Pardon me. What's poppin', my people? Now, as y'all know, since this past election season, I've been covering a lot of politics. So when I got a call from one of my Howard University classmates to attend the DNC candidate forum with him, you know I couldn't resist. Now, let me say, I'm not a political content creator, but I am a truth teller. And anything that's important for my people, you know I'ma get it out. So that's exactly what I'm here to do. Tune in to get into all of the DNC vice chair candidates and get a glimpse into the future of the Democratic Party. Let's go.
Neither DNC staff nor the candidates have seen these questions. DNC members from across the region and the country submitted questions as well, so we have included some of their thoughts. For some questions, we'll ask everyone to respond, and for others, we'll address them to specific candidates. Candidates will get 2 minutes to answer questions. We will decide if we follow up, and if we do, we'll give you an additional 30 seconds for those answers. Crosstalk is not permitted, and we will use the mute button if necessary. And with that, we're going to start with 30-second introductions from all of the candidates. This list is randomized. And so we are going to begin with Ms. Dew.
Good afternoon. I am Aisha Dew, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have 20 years of experience doing this work. I was chair of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. I was first vice chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and also the political director at Higher Heights for America, as well as candidate support for Vote Pro-Choice. And I was the vice chair of the Southern region when I served as vice chair for ACDC, when I served as vice chair for North Carolina. I'm excited to get to work again.
Thank you, Ms. Clinton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Look, I may be a daughter of the South, but I have family all throughout the Midwest. Some who are hardcore Democrats like me, and others who are disillusioned. But what I've learned from them is, when you're in a time of crisis, leadership matters. It matters that I have more than 2 decades of organizing experience across America. It matters that I'm not afraid to say what others won't say, go where others won't go, and do the hard work that others have just failed to do. I'm Kenya Clanton, and I'm running for your DNC Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell.
Great afternoon, everyone. My name is Troy Blackwell. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. I grew up in the poorest congressional district in the country, lived in public housing, survived off of public assistance and food stamps. But because the Democrats gave a damn about me and had policies that benefited me, I was the first in my family to go to college. I served in 2 presidential administrations, worked on 3 national campaigns, and have worked with organized labor. Now, the reason I'm running for vice chair is because there's so many out there who believe that we don't give a damn about them, and we need to get back to work. I'm Troy Blackman, I'm running for vice chair.
I was raised by a dad who's a social worker, a mom who's a home health care aide in the heart of North Philadelphia. I got my first job at 12 years old, washing dishes at a little restaurant because we couldn't always afford the rent. I lived 5 or 6 different places by the time I graduated high school and buried both of those parents I mentioned by the time I was 27. I'm running for vice chair of the Democratic Party because families like mine need a strong Democratic Party. One that fields candidates everywhere, a party that wins, and a party that delivers. I'm Malcolm Kenyatta. Remember that name, and I'd love to earn your support.
Thank you, Ms. Repas.
Well, hello from Kansas. Before I say anything else, let me say if there are any active duty or veterans in the room, thank you for your service, and to all of our union and labor brothers and sisters, thank you.
Up and down from every single level of the Democratic Party that we needed to do deeper outreach with our Black voters. So specifically, we need to talk to all voters. We need to talk to all voters early, and we need to make sure that we definitely talk to our Black voters and make sure that these relationships are not last minute and transactional as they have been throughout several cycles. That's the only way that we're going to win again. And I would also just say that I think one of the specific tools we should use is deep canvassing. Let's start with asking people what they want and then come back to tell them that we are answering their questions and their needs.
Thank you, Ms. Clinton.
Thank you so much for the question. You know, I believe that the portfolio of the DNC Vice Chair has to be defined by people. One of the things that I learned as a staffer with the DNC is that you can't do this work in a vacuum. You have to do it in concert with people who know what it means to do this work, working very closely with our DNC members to really be informed about what they're seeing and what they're hearing on the ground, and bringing that and incorporating that into the strategy that we do in the building. One of the main things that I think.
So to answer your question specifically about the vice chair, we know that the vice chairs do not have a specific defined portfolio. For me, my background is in communications and media. I've been doing it for 15 years. One of the things that I proposed was that the DNC would have a war room to combat misinformation and disinformation. As we saw earlier this week, a former group of Harris aides coupled with the DNC have now launched the Rapid Response Team. I'm interested in being involved in that work because we know the rates of misinformation and disinformation, and we know the violence that follows after that. To go a little bit further, speaking to the state party chairs and those who are involved at that level, I really am passionate about making sure that we have an in-house legal team specifically at the DNC that can support the state parties around redistricting and the races that are going to be contested from Republicans. I have not heard enough about that specifically this race. We know that Trump and the MAGA Republicans have the trifecta. They have the Supreme Court. They also have state legislatures right now. If you are a union member and you're worried about the right to work and you're worried about labor issues, that's going to affect you. That's where we need legal counsel. Another thing that I'm interested in, now granted the vice chairs, this is in tandem with the collective and also determines, depending on who the next chair is, I do support at least 20% of our budget needs to go to our youth organizations. They're severely underfunded. So much of our youth have not been able to even attend in-person events like this because they can't afford it. As someone who grew up in poverty myself and wanted to be involved, I know how painstaking that is. And then last but not least, constituency engagement, specifically Latino engagement. My family's originally from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico right now is going through a determination around our colonial status. Puerto Rico has not had an official line item in the Democratic platform in years. And so I think that's a good start in terms of us re-engaging also with our Latino constituencies.
Thank you. Mr. Zarbi?
Listen, I'm going to be quite blunt. My number one job will be to be a pain in the ass, as I've been for many years now in the Democratic Party. When I ask for accountability and transparency, when I say that we ought to know what the budget is, how effective and it was in terms of expenditures, that's what the bylaws asks us to do. I will continue pushing for that, and I believe that we can elect a reform team that will support it. I also believe that instead of the stranglehold that consultants have over the party right now, they get the money, they make the decisions, and the states have to beg. There ought to be a reverse of the equation, and I will fight that money goes to the state parties first. They ought to be hiring the canvassers, not consultants. They ought to be making decisions about what media we use, not the consultants. We need to change the way we function with state parties so that they can become stronger when elections and not consultants who go to their summer home when it's all over and they end up getting to relax. We have a stake in this, and we need to show that we care. That's the number one thing. The second thing I want to do is I want to be the outreach guy for constituencies we've ignored. Yes, youth, and yes, other, but you know the groups that we ignore the most are immigrant communities. 20% of the Black community today is immigrant. Who's talking to the Nigerians? Who's talking to the Kenyans? Who's talking to the Ethiopians? Who's talking to the Peruvians? Who's talking to the Brazilians? We have ethnic groups here that are shaping the future of our country. You talk to them, you win them, you ignore them, and you lose them. I also want to go to the old ethnic communities. We've had a war in Ukraine. We're in its third year.
And I love dinner. I will be right there. You ain't got to worry about it. And a part of how people can know is that they can look at my record. I have been focused on building this party, trying to elect people up and down the ballot for years, going everywhere. Even when I was running statewide just in this last cycle, I was all across this country doing everything I could to invest in and build this party. And so everybody's, talking about our experiences and background. I think if you look, I have a tried and true record of doing the work of trying to build this party and recruit the talent that it's going to take for us to win. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reeves.
Thank you. Well, let me start by acknowledging someone in the room. It's Ms. Virgie Rollins, the chair of the Black Caucus. This is someone who has been a fighter for us from the beginning. I will never not acknowledge you. And let me say this, I am so thrilled that everybody has now gotten on the train of state parties. I want to acknowledge Shasti Conrad, State Party Chair of Washington. State parties are a microcosm of this country. You have a chair and a vice chair and an executive council. You have to budget. You have to find candidates, train those candidates, support the candidates, go into places where there is no party infrastructure. So to answer your question, one word answer in this, I will tell you part of the problem is that it's nebulous, that we don't have a portfolio, that the DNC has been this wonderful nebulous machine where we all just hang out. The definition, what I would do, infrastructure. And I'm uniquely qualified to do that because I am a state party chair. Because I do it every day. I got a call last night. I was getting ready for an event, my own event, and I got a text. I was in my fat pants trying to rest from the day, get my mind right for my event. And here comes an emergency text from Sedgwick County. Urgent, Chair. I know it's late, but because that's what state party chairs deal with. Up and down the ballot, there's a difference between running a campaign and building party. And that comes with the knowledge on how to do infrastructure, budgeting, candidate recruitment, training, and going places where no one else goes and being the person who answers the phone. So my one-word answer to you is infrastructure building. Nothing else that anyone is talking about can happen. You cannot organize. You can't have organizers if you don't have the infrastructure to put them there. We put organizers on the ground right here in Michigan. Where was the infrastructure? Where was the help? And I will tell you, Michigan's a great state party. But in places like mine, where, by the way, we got no help, none. We had to build our own. But if you want to get in there and you want to make a difference, you better invest in the infrastructure. And the place to do that is through your state party chairs, because we are already doing it. We support the candidates. We raise the money. We answer the phone call, even when we have something else to do. There is a difference between organizing, campaigning, and building back our party. Thank you. Thank you.
I think the most important thing that we can do in order to achieve our values, put them into practice, is win. And so how do we win? And that is why I'm advocating for a sober, comprehensive, data and listening-driven analysis of this year's election, but also so many of the things that we are seeing, so many of the trends. Go back further, go back 10 years. In some cases, when we're talking about
Lost the popular vote. Something clearly went wrong. Please name, again, and we're asking for specificity here, please name one specific thing, maybe not the reason, the ultimate reason why, but at least one specific thing that you would highlight as to what Democrats did wrong, could have improved on, could have done differently in 2024, starting with Ms. Duke.
So, I'll start with, again, we just really didn't talk to voters early enough. From what I could see, the operation really didn't start until, a deeper operation really didn't start until July. And that's too late. I can tell you that the Republican Party in our state started talking to their low propensity voters and knocked on doors. They actually took a page from our playbook and used it against us. And we simply didn't do that. So we need to start knocking on doors, talking to voters, making telephone calls. Of course, there's always the tool of texting, and that's great. I will say that by the end of the cycle, I was so tired of seeing text messages, I probably missed text messages from family and friends, right? So we need to start early when people are really paying attention. And my running joke, not joke, is that if we start talking to people in January, or even, I don't know, a year and a half out, and we ask people if they care about painting a rock blue or yellow, then we'll know that they're really concerned about the price of eggs. We will know that they are really concerned about what's going on. I know that we keep saying the working class, but let's just be clear. I will say I feel like 92% of Black women are probably working class, right? So the reality of it is that we just didn't deliberately turn out more Black voters by actually doing turnout to our low propensity voters to let them know that we really care about them. You know, our party is a party that helps people. When you look at our track record, it's actually kind of amazing. When you look at the work that President Biden did, it was really phenomenal. But also, some people were still hurting. And so they didn't know that, unfortunately, we were still making up for a Trump administration that did 8 years of damage after the Obama administration created an economy for Donald Trump that he got to take credit for. So we need to let people know we're sorry that you're still struggling. And also, we are working and fighting on your behalf. So even when we don't accomplish it, you need to know that we are working on your behalf.
Thank you. Ms. Glenn.
So in all actuality, we lost this last election because we forgot about marginalized people. And as Democrats, we always paint ourselves as this big tent party. But the problem with a tent is that eventually you're going to leave someone out. Eventually, you're going to push someone into the margins, and you're going to focus on a few when we're not monolithic. The issues that are impacting people every single day is occurring at their kitchen tables. I know we've heard a lot about that. We do a great job, like to Aisha's point, of advocating for people and pushing for policy. But is that policy meeting them at the table? Can they feel it when they get ready to go to the doctor and they have to pay overextended co-pays, or when they're going to the grocery store and they can't afford a carton of milk or a carton of eggs or a gallon of milk? Like, are we connecting to the real issues? We are disconnected. That's really what the issue is. And that's because we've chosen to prioritize a few states over the 50 states and the 7 territories. And that has become, it is a growing problem for us. It has forced folks to what my good friend calls the growing couch coalition, folks who just can't see themselves in alignment with our values, and that's a problem. When you talk to people one-on-one and you hear about what they care about, it's aligned with the Democratic Party. We are just not communicating that to people in a real way because we've chosen to focus on the small things when we really need to get to the things that matter for people. You know, the economy is a big deal, right? The work that people are doing in these states is a big deal. And we, for whatever reason, have chosen to only identify a few states to focus on when the rest of America is hurting. People don't need more conversation. They need help. They need helping hands to help them move themselves forward and move their families up. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell.
In terms of why we lost, I think it comes down to one thing, and that one thing is messaging. And I feel like you're going to hear a lot of people consistently say, hey, it's a messaging issue, our brand is an issue, but I'll tell you what I mean. The first thing is this cycle, we focused too much on the individual versus the issue. We focused a lot on who Trump was as the candidate, who J.D. Vance was as the candidate. We didn't talk enough about the issues specifically. Issues are visceral. That is what people feel. So, for example, a Republican Congress that wants to cut Medicaid and Social Security, state legislatures where right to work is up for debate that affects if you're in a labor union. Those are issue-based issues that we lost voters to. Second is we didn't meet people where they are. I've mentioned this on a lot of the phone calls that I've made out to the states, but there's a whole ecosystem that's happening right before our eyes and we're falling behind. Republicans have AM radio, they have podcasts, the Joe Rogans, the Rush Limbaughs, they have digital infrastructure, they have subreddits, there's Elon Musk who owns X, who's in Trump's pocket, and when it comes to us, we're only relying on our media. If you don't get those 1 or 2 TV hits, that's it, that's what we rely on. And we lost this entire media ecosystem that's a breeding ground for misinformation and disinformation. And we were not able to catch it in real time. We were not meeting people where they were. For example, where were all the Democrats at the Navy-Army game? What about at the sporting events? NASCAR is the biggest sport in this country. Those stadiums can fill 250,000 people. Just showing up is half the battle, and we weren't there. Also, in terms of our authentic communication, because I know I'm short on time here, I have family in Puerto Rico. I'm from New York. I've worked in Pennsylvania, worked in Florida. A lot of the 6-figure money that went to these Latino ads, I've spoken to people and they said they've never seen it. 13 Latino organizations sent a letter to the DNC in October saying that less than 30% from their surveys were saying that they received engagement for the National Party.
Thank you. Mr. Zachary?
I'll tell you 3 quick stories. I was at a DNC meeting, executive committee meeting in 2014 after we got whomped all across the country. We lost state legislatures in states where we have people that need labor protection, that need health care, that need all the services, education that would be provided. Legislation gutted some of those. I went to the meeting. Party pollster came forward and he said, why is everybody so unhappy? We kept the Obama coalition together. We won this vote, we won it, and it went down the line. So I waited a little bit, raised my hand, I said, but we lost ethnic voters. I chaired the ethnic council. We lost them in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. His response was, we're not wasting money throwing it on people who aren't going to ever vote for us. I said, with that attitude, you are going to lose the ability to become a majoritarian party. We're handing a group of people to Republicans on a silver platter. 2 years later, I saw an ad on a television in Pennsylvania, a guy running for Congress came forward with a plaid shirt and he said, my mom and dad were union members and Democrats. I grew up a Democrat, but you know what? Let's face it, they don't care about us anymore. That's why I'm a Republican. I didn't know what to say in response to that. Fact is, we lost voters we didn't need to lose. And the reason why, the consultant class who never lose an election. They make their money and they go home and they're happy, but we lose. We shouldn't have lost Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and we shouldn't lose any state because every state's a battleground state. There's no red state or blue state. There are states, but we do not compete in them because we don't talk to people. Because the consultants have a model that they work with and they impose it on reality instead of knowing what reality is. And so frankly, I think the DNC, the members who reflect the elected body coming from those states, they need to be in the driver's seat where we spend our money, how we do our work. We wouldn't lose in that case, but we lose when consultants make the model and decide for us where the money goes.
So let me answer your question by saying something that needs to be a part of these forums. I am not going to spend these next 3 forums, and I'm certainly not going to spend the next 4 years somehow apologizing for being a Democrat and for being proud of this party. I refuse to do it. And so when we talk about what just happened in the last election, the idea that this election was some wave for the other side is not accurate. In Pennsylvania, we held on to our House majority for the first time in almost 40 years by 1 seat. In Michigan, held on to the trifecta at the state level, expanded in the state Senate. In Arizona, they gained seats in the state house. In Georgia, they picked up 2 important seats in the suburbs there in the state house. In Wisconsin, they broke the super majority there in that state. And also in the Senate, they broke the super majority and narrowed it in the House. In North Carolina, got rid of the veto-proof majority. In Alaska, won the ballot initiative to keep ranked choice voting. In Nevada, they kept both state chambers, codified abortion rights. I believe we are in a state where there's a senator named Slotkin who won, and all across this country, we have big victories. That is not to say that we don't want to win the presidency. But a part of the problem that we have is that we've spent too long engaged in the cottage industry of crapping on Democrats. If you want to get on TV, have a hot take about how the Democrats suck. And we've heard it over and over again that we get into the same stinking thinking. I refuse to embrace that and reject it. We have to be fiercely focused on the future. Kamala Harris got 76 million votes. Those voters want to know not how are we going to figure out how to win the last election. That election's over. We have to win the next election. And we win it by doing what I just said. Looking local. Clearly, Democrats at the local level know something about winning and convincing their neighbors that they are in it for them. And if this party listens to people on the local level who are winning on the ground, then we can also win at the top of the ticket. But if we treat this party like the only thing that matters is winning the presidency, we will not do what we need to do moving forward.
Thank you. Well, just a quick follow-up to you on looking at it. You ultimately did, the Democrats lost the popular vote. Democrats have won the popular vote, I think 6 out of the last 7 presidential elections. This is, of course, now going to be the second time this happens. I'd be curious to hear, though, do you have a diagnosis as to what, if you are forward-looking, what can be done that's better beyond just winning local? Because you also have to win a national election, and that's a huge part of what the DNC does.
We do, but we need to understand we don't have one big national election. We have a bunch of small local and state elections. That's how the elections take place. A part of what, there's some focus groups who looked at, what do people say about Democrats? And one of the first words that came to people's minds is that we are weak and that we don't have a confidence in ourselves. If we don't believe in this party, why the hell else should we expect somebody else to believe in us? The guy who's going to be sworn in did not win a majority of the popular vote in this last election. We have a lot of our voters who stayed home, and a part of it is this, and I'll end here. My sister said something to me once that I'll never forget. She said, Donald Trump lies with more confidence than we tell the truth. We have to be willing to tell the truth. We lost a close election, but this idea that we should write an obituary for the Democratic Party is wrong, and I reject it.
Mm-hmm. Period.
Ms. Repass?
Would you mind asking the question again?
Of course. Democrats lost the presidential election. You lost the popular vote. Be curious to hear if there is one thing that you feel like Democrats could have and should have done differently in 2024.
I will give you a one-word answer. As a chair, I always try to give people a straight answer. The answer is complacency. I'm going to make that live for you. My mom was a civil rights activist, And what she used to say to my brothers and I all the time is, you guys are getting too comfortable. She'd say, you're getting too comfortable, getting too comfortable. And she didn't say it conversationally. There was heat on it. And one day I got brave enough to say, okay, but Mom, isn't that what you guys marched for and fought for in the 60s so your children and grandchildren could be comfortable? And my mother looked me in my eye and she said, absolutely not. We marched and we fought. We went to jail. Some of us died, not so you could get comfortable, but so you could have equal access, so that you could have equal rights. Don't you dare get comfortable. That is what the Democratic Party did, complacency and comfortability. And let me make this live for you. Getting comfortable, I'm gonna give you a visual. Where's Andre? Make sure you give me credit for this one. Here's the visual. Getting comfortable is like coasting. We all understand the physics of coasting. You cannot coast up. You want to go from where you are to where you need to be, you've got to put energy into it. You cannot be comfortable. You cannot be complacent. I wish I could say to Democrats, hey, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. I can't even say that. By the way, not a good thing. Because if we do what we've always done, we are now getting diminishing returns. That's the problem. We lost because of complacency, because we keep doing the same old thing. And now it's no longer working. We're no longer listening to people. Everything these wonderful people up here have said, it's all true, but it's wrapped up in complacency. We got comfortable. We thought we arrived. We thought we had the guy who had beaten the guy. And then when the guy couldn't beat the guy, we did what we always do, which is turn to black women and say, go save America. And furthermore, go save the world, because the whole world is watching. That's what the Democratic Party did wrong. If we want to get from where we are to where we want to go, we better put some energy. And this is why I say to Kansans, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Period.
Thank you. Teacher?
Look, we need to rebuild, organize, communicate, and we need to win. So we do need an analysis, a data and listening driven analysis. And we need to look at the things that went wrong, and we also need to look at the things that went right? And my mom used to say, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, all right? So we need to keep doing those things that are right and investing in those things. But there are also some things that are immediately apparent that we can get to work on day one, and that I will be advocating for. And one of those has to do with media. The media market is increasingly diversified, increasingly fragmented. That is a trend that is only going to continue. So we need to look at our content of our messaging. We need to look at the delivery of our messaging. We need to be sure that, I as a county commissioner, I represented a rural area. People there are not necessarily watching mainstream CBS and NBC. I love them all, but they're not watching that, right? We need to get on radio, we need to get on TikTok. We need to be everywhere delivering our messaging and localizing and targeting that messaging. So we also, another huge clarion call to us this election was youth turnout, and we have to pay attention to that. So our Youth Democratic Party organizations are so awesome. They are, and you talk to people who are at this table and in this room and watching, a lot of them started in these organizations, in young Dems and high school Dems and college Dems. We need to be investing in those organizations, respecting those organizations, making sure they have a seat at the table, which is exactly what I have done. As chair of my County's Environmental Council, we have a dedicated youth seat. As chair of the DNC Climate Council, we have a dedicated youth engagement director youth seat, and we work closely with college Dems, high school Dems, and young Dems on many, many events throughout the year. So again, I come back to, I'm gonna do this full time, and I really mean it. I will be there for you.
Thank you.
Nothing needs a lie like the truth.
Okay.
And Democrats need to be truth tellers all day, all the time, on every platform, everywhere we can. And don't rely on someone else to tell your truth. It is up to us to tell our truth. We know what he's doing. I agree with Malcolm. But it's our job to tell the truth. And by the way, here's how you tell the truth against somebody who's a dead on life. We're in a street fight, folks. They're out here street fighting with brass knuckles and shanks, and we're playing by Marquess of Kingsbury rules. Because that's what Democrats do. Get in the street, get out and tell people the truth, and every time he lies, and those lies will hurt people. It's not about the fact that we can't trust him, he's gonna hurt people who are counting on us. We are the firewall over the next 2 years before we go in there and take back control of Congress. And the next 4 years, when we have a chance to take back the direction of our country, we've got to be truth tellers. And I will tell you, in Kansas, I've already made the Republicans mad. We've been in session a week, they're already mad at me, and I don't care. I will tell the people of Kansas the truth. Democrats, get out, get your brass knuckles on, get your mouths open. Nothing beats a lie like the truth, and that's what we have to do over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to follow up for the three candidates that just answered the question, the second part of that question was, is there anything that Democrats can work with Trump on? Do any of you want to address that directly? Is there anything you can name? Mr. Kenyatta?
Yeah, I think this is really simple. I don't care how you registered to vote, if you want to make life better for the people that I love and that I know you all love best in the world, then let's get to work doing that. If folks want to be serious about lowering costs for folks, let's get to work doing that. But if folks want to spend the next 4 years invading Greenland and Panama and Canada, then I don't know if we're going to have a lot to work on together.
Yes, thank you. Here's the problem. Nobody knows what he's going to do. Because like the Greenland thing, that's all distraction. He's doing this over here, so we don't know what he's doing over there. But I will tell you, I know every Democrat is willing to work hard to do something good on behalf of the country. And if I had to just pick one thing right now, it's the thing we already did, which was a bipartisan border bill. We believe in immigration. We want it to be done right and fair within humanity. Well, now, right, but I'll be honest, if he's starting to build cages for children, we're going to fight him on everything. So right now, what we need to do is get past the Gulf of America, figure out what he's actually going to do, and then we can decide if we can work with him.
Well, I'm a Southern girl, and I am no stranger to having worked with people on the other side of the aisle. But I'll tell you the truth about this. It's hard to answer that question in all honesty, because the truth is we simply don't know what he's going to present that we could work with him on. We do know some of the things that he's talked about that we can't and we should work with him on, like dismantling the Department of Education, right? Taking away Title I funding for families, right? Making sure that Head Start is still here for the working class.
Strategy change in any way to reflect that, whether it be dark money, whether it be restricting candidates. We are now nearing the conclusion of this forum. You have 30 seconds to make remarks, and we're going to start with Ms. Dietrich this time around and go down the line.
At this critical time for our party and nation, we need people in elected leadership at the DNC who have walked the walk, done the hard work, and are clear-eyed about the path back to victory. And as a farmer and former elected official who flipped a rural red seat to blue, I know the path forward. I have the experience of turning out the very voters that we need. Not everything our party has done was wrong, but we can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. With so much at stake, I will do this full time. I'm Michelle Dietrich, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Rivas.
Well, hello and goodbye from Kansas. I want to say, I'm going to end this way, because when I'm out talking to the people of Kansas, I end with a couple of different things every time, but this is what I'm going to end with today. I'm going to say I've got bad news and I got good news for you. We start with the bad news. The bad news is nobody's coming to save us.
Okay.
No one is coming to save us. Now here's your good news. We get to save ourselves.
Hey.
We get to be the hero in this story, and now is the time. I'm not going to give him the respect to call him a supervillain. He just is what he is. But we get to play hero if we do something different. I'm Gina Repass from the great state of Kansas, and I look forward to your vote to be DNC Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyatta.
In this race for Vice Chair, if you are looking to draft the best Monday morning quarterback, you're not looking for me. But if you're looking for somebody who believes in this party, if you're looking for a Vice Chair that's going to be fiercely focused on the future, if you're looking for somebody who understands and has been committed to building this party that has a record of doing it, then I'd ask you to consider for voting for me, Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. I believe in this party. I believe in our future. If we get back to basics, look local first, and remember who the hell we are. We are Democrats. We don't apologize for it. We get up. We're not bowing down. We're not rolling over. We are going to win if we remember who we are and do it together. God bless you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Zogby.
Thank you. My late wife used to tease me. She'd say, you spent most of your life fighting for justice for Palestinians, fighting to reform the Democratic Party, and fighting to reform the Catholic Church. Couldn't you pick something easy? I do it because I believe in all of them. And despite the hard knocks you take, We keep fighting because it's worth it. The Democratic Party to me is worth it. I'm a diaper Dem. My mom was a precinct captain. I went walking with her when I was 7. I believe in it, but I know there are problems we've got to fix to get stronger, to get better, and to be able to win all across the country.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell.
Look, people can't dream at night. They can't sleep. People are rationing insulin. People are facing severe poverty in this country. There are children that are going to bed hungry. There are parents who are thinking about where their next paycheck is going to come from. As someone who grew up in severe poverty, from the South Bronx to working in the last 2 presidential administrations, the last 3 presidential campaign cycles, I put sweat equity into this party. This is a party that looked out for me. This is a party that gave a damn about me, and I give a damn about it. My name is Troy Blackwell, and I hope you join me on this journey.
Thank you, Ms. Clanton.
Listen,
Period.
I believe that we can rebuild this Democratic Party together. I'm running because I truly believe that it's time that we transform the way that in which we do business here at the DNC. It's time to create more equitable opportunities and more transparency in our processes. It's time to bring some tenacity back to the work and the hard work and doing this. We do a lot of talking. It's time to do some work. Put our hands back in the dirt and get it done. And it's time to get it done together. So I believe that if we come together, one body, with one mission, and that is to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, we can get this done on day 1. So elect me DNC Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dew.
Thank you for having me. I was sworn in to my seat on January 8th, wearing my grandmother's dress and swearing in on her Bible. My grandmother was a school teacher, and so she took me with her early on to go help and tutor children. So it was built into my DNA to help people. The only reason I ran for office is because I want to help people. The only reason I am here is because I want to help my party do what we do best, and that is help people. That's the reason I can never leave my party, because we're the party that helps, and we just need to let people know. I'm Aisha Dew, and I hope I can count on your vote.
Candidates, thank you so much for this robust conversation. We're going to take another brief break. And we're going to gather again at 6 p.m. to kick off a conversation with the candidates for DNC Vice Chair, Civic Engagement, and Voter Participation. See you then.
Somebody who. I am hungry.
Ready? In a little bit, yeah, just about.
He's a vice chair of voter participation. Do you know Joyce Beatty?
Yeah, I've heard her name.
Congressman from Ohio, and Nikema Williams. She's the one that did the Little John set at the DNC. She's running for that position.
Okay.
So they're gonna go next. I was gonna watch.
You gonna stay? I'll stay. Watch them. I might watch them too.
What's up, man?
Alright, you guys welcome. Go ahead.
Somebody who loves me. Somebody who. Somebody. Thank you. Who.
Formative change. Second, for voter participation. When we think about what we are losing in the working class, we're losing out on young people, we're losing out on people of color. So we have to have dedicated strategies. First and foremost, when 93 of the 100 highest viewed shows last year were NFL football games, it would not make any sense for us not to have a sports and gaming strategy in how we mobilize, especially you think about here in Detroit right now where the Lions are doing their thing. It would not make any sense to not do that. Moreover, gaming. Too often we have ceded the conversation in gaming to the Republicans. Donald Trump and others literally have Republican chats motivated and mobilizing their message. It is not just the young person that is doing gaming, it is happening across the country. I would dedicate a strategy to that. Lastly, when we think about how do we transform this specific role, we have to ask ourselves, Who is ready immediately on February 1st to lead in this capacity? And in that regard, we have to deploy surrogates consistently. We have to listen to what the states actually need, listen to the DNC chairs, vice chairs, and members so we have a dedicated program for them. We are not doing that. We have not been doing that. And instead of us asking a voter to mobilize with us 4 weeks before an election, we should be doing it every single day.
Thank you. Congresswoman Bailey.
I think when you think of how do you define this role, it's within the name. When you look at civic engagement and voter participation, it's just that. We have to go from inside to outside. We have great technologies, we have great strategies, but nobody knew about it. I call it inside baseball. Great staffing, great work, but if we didn't take it to the community, if we didn't bring in our civic leaders, if we didn't get creative and bring in our organizations, our Divine Nine, when you think about all of those organizations have voter participation plans, they have I will vote, they do all of this, but we need to marry it. I think I am the best candidate because I speak both languages. As a voting member of the DNC and someone who has been elected, someone who has traveled to states, been there when no other candidate has been there, I'll bring creative things like hackathons. I'll do trainings and fellowships. We need to engage the younger folks. We need to bring them in and to train the trainers. We need to make sure that everybody is engaged. We have to use media and different technology. I call it old school, new school. You have to look at it. Some people are doing Instagram and TikTok if they do, and Reddit and Threads and Blue Skies, and some of us are still on Facebook. So we have to marry it. Right now we're too isolated. The people talk to each other on the inside, and then we have people over here talking on the outside. How about bringing everybody together? How about old school, new school? How about making sure that we understand if you have a message and you don't have tactics, if you have a message and you don't have an infrastructure, then you can't win. And civic engagement and voter participation is about making sure you have access to the ballot box. When people are threatened for a senior standing in line, and if you give them a cup of water, that they're going to charge you as a felony. So we have to make sure voter protection, voter access, and engagement.
Thank you. Ms. Walters-Morgan.
I see the Civic Engagement and Voter Participation Vice Chair as a voting rights leader who ensures that every eligible American can cast a ballot that counts. That's what this is about, making sure that people know what to do and have the tools that they need to vote. I did that as the DNC's Voter Protection Director. We revamped iwillvote.com, as I mentioned, to give you a sense of what that looked like. The voter education pages are the pages that my team worked on to make sure that people had the information needed to vote. In 2020, iwillvote.com had over 20 million unique hits. It is a tool that people needed to get the information needed to vote. I also did that at the DNC with the National Voter Assistance Hotline. These are people who are calling to get information on how to vote and who didn't have another place to go to get that information. Our volunteers helped hundreds of thousands of voters get the information that they needed to cast a ballot. So I think we need a vice chair who understands what the programs have looked like, but also has a vision to the future, and I have that. In terms of the policy, we need to win. Bottom line, we are Democrats, and we need to make sure that we are supporting Democrats up and down the ballot. Again, we have done that. When I was at the DNC, we competed and supported candidates in races up and down the ballot, from a sheriff's race to President of the United States. And we do that by reaching our communities and by talking to our communities and bridging the gap. I've talked to so many people who said that they have concerns and that they've raised those concerns, but for some reason, it never gets to the national party. For some reason, it's not implemented. We need to listen to people on the ground. We need to listen to the concerns that they're raising because they are valid concerns, like not reaching Latino voters, like not reaching Black men. We need to take those messages and make sure that that is being translated into the policies that we're implementing as a national party.
Based on a post-election analysis by the New York Times, Donald Trump made larger gains among Black, Hispanic, Asian American, and young voters in his campaign since 2016 than he has among white voters without a college degree. As candidates vying for a position in which voter participation is in the name, Can you diagnose why you think Democrats have lost ground with these multiracial groups, which are considered a core part of the Democratic Party? And we'll have everyone engage on this. Congressman Beatty, how about we start with you?
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. I think when you look at what happened in those elections, we didn't listen enough. We didn't listen to what people really wanted. We had great messaging, but the messaging didn't go back to say it in simple terms. Donald Trump went out there, albeit a lie, but he told them, I'm going to make your life better. I'm going to make sure that you don't get evicted from your homes. I'm going to make sure that gas prices go down. I'm going to make sure that you can eat. So when people heard that then made them feel that this candidate is better for me. We had a lot of great things that we did, but the messaging and how we said it and how we got it out wasn't the same as what we did before. When you think about the race with Barack Obama, when he ran in the Midwest, Ohio reelected him twice. When you look at our battleground states and those that were in the Midwest, people in the Midwest were hurting. We're here in the Midwest now. We didn't get enough attention. It used to be, I'm from the great state of Ohio. It was however Ohio went, the nation went. So when you look at how we're developing all those great plans that we had in the offices in the DNC, we have to make sure that we take all those great things that Raina said. And great as they were, we weren't able to get them out into the streets. And that's the most important thing. Messaging, having the tactics to tell brothers and sisters, old school, new school. So many of us went into the barbershop. So many of us went out into the community. But one thing about the data, I am not going to accept that Black men did not vote. We had win with Black women, win with Black men. Organizations and fraternities got out there and we delivered. We just did not deliver enough because we didn't have the infrastructure, we didn't have the messaging that resonated with them. And Donald Trump had lies that made a difference while we were messaging about what we had done and how we would do it, but it wasn't at the grassroots level. We didn't engage enough influencers, we didn't engage enough young folks.
And that was my follow-up for you, Congressman. In 30 seconds, can you just be a little bit more specific about what you would have done differently in terms of marrying old school and new school, as you've talked about, getting the message out? What do you mean specifically by that? What would you have done differently?
Well, one of the things is I would have brought all the caucuses together. We had separate meetings. Look, I was one of the most powerful Black women in the country when we started this with the Congressional Black Caucus. I did not have any of those folks coming and saying to us, let's meet together, let's join. So I would go out. We have Democrats for high schools, Democrats that are college. We have labor unions and labor workers of all ages. I would have put a forum together. I would have done a virtual hearing with them, almost like a teletown hall, where we could have heard what they wanted, what they needed, and then I would have married that with our message. I would have used social media better for everything in the different forms of social media. We talked about it, but we did not marry those things.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Blake?
We lost because too many people see our party as elitist as opposed to talking to everybody. We lost because, as JFK said in 1958, so long as there's one child without milk, so long as there's a family without a decent home, so long as there's overcrowded schools and inadequate hospitals, that's why we lost. We lost because equally there's sexism and racism that still exists, that you could have a place where in Michigan, you have Alyssa Slotkin win the United States Senate and 2 women win the Supreme Court, but we didn't win in the vice president becoming president. In North Carolina, where every Democrat won statewide, but we didn't. So if we want to keep ignoring the reality, we lost because of those dynamics that are there. We lost because people don't think we care about them right now. That's why we are losing as Democrats. So I am running for civic engagement and voter participation because I give a damn about the people. I'm that kid whose my mama was homeless and slept on church pews. I'm that kid who had to sell dinners on Saturdays to pay my rent. I know what it's like to be bullied. I know what it's like to endure those things. That's what people are looking for. To your question, what would I do differently? First and foremost, we have to meet people where they're at. We have to stop overthinking the strategies. Now, I will say, we have the infrastructure. What Chairman Harris and others built was exceptional. The reality is we got to connect people on the ground and be more direct around that. How do you do that? First and foremost, I go back to sports and gaming. We cannot ignore where people are watching and paying attention to. We were having conversations where people will say, well, we shouldn't go to Joe Rogan and other places like podcasts. That made no sense. If someone is listening there, you should go there because you can actually get votes there. And so when we think about what we can do differently, you have to engage people creatively, consistently, and concurrently. That is what you do. Now, when you bring this all together, as someone who is an alpha, a 100 black man, a preacher, and a mason, I'm also Jamaican, so I'm used to having multiple jobs in that regard. You have to understand that civic engagement means bringing in the multiple organizations on the front end to mobilize them on the back end. Lastly, we have to make it exciting to be a Democrat again.
Well, and a 30-second follow-up, how do you make it exciting to be a Democrat again?
You be a candidate who can walk on stage with Black and Gold Air Force Ones. You can be someone who can actually talk about hip hop and business at the same time. You can be in that space where you can say that a Latino is not a monolithic block and saying that what's going on with Puerto Rican and Dominican and Mexicano is not the same. That means that you can go into communities and demonstrate that you're going to be real. It means that you can engage all parties and all systems at the same time. People need to know that you are excited about who we are. They did not feel that. They felt we were talking down to them rather than trying to empower them.
Thank you. Same question to you, Ms. Walters.
We lost ground because we lost everyone's trust. People will not trust you if they don't see you. People will not trust you if you do not show up in their communities and you're not having meaningful conversations with them at a time when you don't need them for something. And I think that's one of the things that we lost sight of. We can do so much better. And one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we are showing up in communities not 3 months before an election, not 3 weeks before an election, but when it matters. That means year-round engaging, year-round organizing, year-round advocacy. You may remember that the Republicans opened a community center in some tribal counties. I don't know how long those centers were open, but what I can tell you is that it meant something that they showed up. And I think we've got to do more of that. We have amazing DNC meetings. We talk about a lot of things with each other, but we need to use every opportunity where we are meeting as an organizing opportunity. We need to make sure that we are taking the message from the Democratic circles to our communities. We need to listen to people. We did that at the DNC. We did a bus tour 1 year, and during that bus tour, we had conversations with college students in the Atlanta area. It was an eye-opening experience because they had benefited from the Biden administration, but didn't know that the Biden administration was the reason they had benefited. We've got to do more of that. We've got to have more conversations with people in communities and really listen to what they're saying. So honestly, I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to show up. We've got to show up early, and we've got to be thoughtful and listen to the conversations that they're trying to have.
Say hi.
Lil' bro, here you go. You're welcome. Me.